Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Game Plan with Marcus Hersh. I'm Marcus Hersh. Game Plan is a product that the Daily Racing Report puts out nearly every day. I'm focusing on the playbook section of it, where various handicapping experts select horses from around the country you might want to bet on. Saturday is Belmont Stakes Day at Belmont Park in Elmont, New York. I'm in town covering those races, excuse me. I'm focusing on the Belmont card. Unsurprisingly, I've got 3 horses I'm interested in playing. I'll go through them in chronological order. The first one is in race 4, the Grade 1 $700,000 just a game stakes, a 1 turn, 1 1/4, 1 1/8 turn. 1 mile race. Well, it just starts on a little dog leg, is what I'm saying. And then they got a long run down the backstretch, 1 turn. Excellent race. Lots of good horses running this race. $700,000 purse. There's a compact, but I think pretty competitive field of 7 entered, and the 4 to 5 favorite on the morning line is a horse for Jad Brown named Rushing Fall, one of the more well-known horses in training. And yet, she's only run against older horses 1 time. If you're a buyer speed figure devotee, she's never cracked 100. Her 8-7-1-0 record is obviously impressive. She's a 3-time Grade 1 winner, and yet I still, even though she may be the lone speed in this race, believe that she can be beaten. And the horse I'm trying to beat her with, although I was tempted by another one of Chad Brown's horses, Environs, who, because of the allowance conditions here, gets an amazing 10-pound weight break from Rushing Fall. I think Environs' last race at Churchill isn't truly representative, the 4th in the Distaff Turf Mile, but the horse that I'm most focused on in this race won that race, Beau Recall, number 3. I guess probably if you'd asked me 5 days ago, I would have been saying I was skeptical of this horse, and I think a lot of people are going to be, because she'd never run a race like she had in the Distaff Turf Mile before, and that is, I guess, some concern. Some horses just freak out, have one incredibly outlier, radical, peak performance, and can't really sustain that. And that could be the case here. However, it's not like she's going to be bet down to odds on or something because of the presence of Rushing Fall and some other pretty good horses in this race. She could actually be a fair price. And so, I watched the race again and looked at how fast she came home, 23.19 seconds for the last 1/4 mile, which over that Churchill course, which is officially listed as firm, but was by all accounts not firm and not playing fast at all. That was a very good finishing kick, and all you have to do is watch the race, and you can guess that she came home fast. She was in last behind a moderate tempo and just overwhelmed everybody with a really powerful stretch run. The 2 reasons that I think that this is possibly sustainable, 2.5 reasons. The 3rd reason isn't really about sustainability, but I'll get to that in a second. Brad Cox, who is just having an awesome Belmont meet with his unlimited string here. He has only trained this filly for 4 races, and she was okay in New Orleans, but she's obviously, I just feel like there's an improving line here, that she might be a different horse in a different circuit in a different barn. And also, unbidden, when I was talking to the trainer about another horse, he mentioned that her 3 turf workouts at Churchill after the Distaff Turf Mile and before this race were even more encouraging than she'd worked before that race. Like, she's come out of it in better shape than she went into it. And the other thing is that I guess this horse is really going to like a 1-turn mile. I think that her long outside run is going to be suited by the configuration of this race, and I'm hoping for a fair price on it. I surprised myself with the second horse I'm going to talk about here in the Acorn Stakes, and that's race 7, and the horse in question is number 8, Queen of Bees. It's not a horse that I have thought was that fabulous at any point in her career. However, she's interesting in this spot for a couple reasons. One, her price. She's 12-1 on the line. I think that's plausible. 2, the way she runs her races, with kind of likes to stalk on the outside, get into the race in the middle. and then finish it off with a decent kick at her best. I think with post number 8 and with so much apparent speed entered here, she could really get a favorable trip in this race. I also believe that the 2 favorites in this race, Serengeti Empress, the Kentucky Oaks winner, and Guarana, who's actually the 2-1 morning line favorite, despite having done nothing more than win a debut race at Keeneland in the slop. I don't think either of those horses necessarily have to win at all, although I do think both of them are capable and talented. But Queen of Bees, she really made an impression over the winter at Gulfstream, and going back and watching her races, we have a replay of her allowance race win. Not just that, she went back to back from maiden to allowance and won by open lengths in the second of those wins, but I really saw a mid-race when she was on the bridle and when she was just let go a little bit by her jockey, kind of at the midway point. She really punched in a way that I think a talented horse does. I think there's more to come there. She barely did anything between January 31st, that race, and the 8 bells. She was going through some problems. She was scratched out of, I don't know the specific nature of her issues, but she would have kept racing into, as with the Kentucky Oaks as a target had she been able to. But going into the 8 bells, I didn't see how she could possibly be competitive because she hadn't worked enough to race enough. She was scratched at Keeneland. And then to make matters worse, she got off to a slow start. And never really had a chance in a race, absolutely dominated on the front end by another Brad Cox horse, Break Even. This filly actually finished decently and galloped out pretty well. And now, rather than coming into a race full of rust and without enough recency to, I think, fully present herself last time, she's got a really good pattern, I think, based on the 3 races over the winter at Gulfstream, the break, and then that very potentially useful 8 bells. And something like her listed odds, I think Queen Bees could be worth a play in the Acorn. And finally, the strangely positioned Brooklyn Invitational, which is way on the back end of the card, race 13, post time 8 p.m. It's going to be getting dark if they don't stay on schedule. It's a 1.5-mile race for older horses. I think it's a fairly competitive field. I am focused here on number 2, Campaign, who's 7-2 on the line. I'm thinking he might be a little higher than that. Maybe I'm off base there, but one thing that's going to happen is trainer John Sadler, based in California, as has Campaign been. He has a very poor record in New York, on the surface at least, and I think a lot of people know that, and a lot of people are shying away from his horses because of that. He's brought a couple here, and I think that this horse could be allowed to drift up a little bit, A, because shipped from California, and B, because of Sadler's record. But one thing that I think is worth considering about California shippers this year, and in this race, especially this 1.5-mile race where it's a test of stamina, is the racing surface at Santa Anita has been slowed and changed so much this season after the spate of unfortunate breakdowns. The track has been tiring and deep, and the race that this horse ran last time, the Tokyo City, was very slow from start to finish. The finishing times were very slow off a slow pace, and you'd look at that and think, well, that was not much of a race. But I went back and looked at the times, excuse me, for that entire card, and it was just the track was a plowed field. They may even be struggling to get the numbers right on it. The track was just so slow. And the point that Sadler made was, for the first time maybe ever, you've got Santa Anita surface that's even deeper and more laboring than Belmont, which is known to be problematic for some horses used to running on faster, harder surfaces like on the West Coast traditionally, because they struggle to adapt here. Campaign has already done that. Not just that, but this is a 4-year-old who's not very exposed. 3 of his races were on turf, so he's only had 5 dirt starts and only just stretched out to longer distances. I'm just thinking back to the horse that won this race last year, Opportunity. He was a higher class horse who had run in shorter distances. And this is not completely comparable. Campaign doesn't have that sort of long-term form. But before the Tokyo City, Sadler, who just got the horse over the winter, late last fall, ran him in the Santa Anita Handicap, which Sadler won with Gift Box. McKenzie, who's in the Metropolitan Handicap on this card, was second in that race. This horse ran a pretty decent 4th. I mean, that's a legitimate grade 1. And I mentioned Opportunity because he would run a race like this, and then he stretched out to a distance he could handle while dropping in class, which is what this horse did in Tokyo City. he just sat back in last and mowed them all down. He obviously is a real staying sort of horse. He's, I think, worked very forwardly since that race. And I don't care if he falls, 5, 7, 8 lengths off the pace. I think he's going to come with a run, and I think he can get there. And I'm hoping he's even higher than 7-2, and that I'm still awake at the end of a long day to bet on him in the Brooklyn Invitational. I'll be awake after cover the race, I promise. But anyway, there's 3 horses to consider. There's so many fabulous horses running on this card. It should be a really excellent day of racing in Belmont, and wish you the best of luck in your wagers.